one of our favorites who we've spoken to over the many years of this program. He's Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Tom, good to hear from you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Larry. Great to be with you again. Thank you.
So you've been focusing quite a bit, speaking of anti-racism and the critical race theory agendas, you've been focusing on what's going on in Montgomery County Public Schools. We've talked about Fairfax and Loudoun, but under the radar here, Montgomery County is actually, it appears to me, more radical than all of them with their agenda. What have you discovered?
Well, there were two issues. They've got a class or classes that already had taken place that were promoting really extremist ideology, anti-racist racism, as I call it, in the middle school, Thomas Piles specifically. And there's this horrible chart we uncovered, a pyramid of overt and covert white supremacism. And the covert white supremacism is "Make America Great Again," which is the Trump campaign slogan.
Yeah.
Celebrating Columbus Day. Denying you're a racist, that's covert white supremacism. And this is the sort of material that was being taught in a summer school class in Montgomery County. And on top of that, they had a report, or they were trying to do a systematic, anti-racism audit. And it was $450,000 plus to basically, in my view, hire some hucksters to promote this critical race theory programming through an audit process.
So, it's dumbfounding here. The whole idea that if you deny that you are racist, that is an indication that you are racist. That is, it's right out of Kafka, and this is mainstreamed now. This is actually being taught to our children in this class. This isn't just, diversity training for the teachers, which would be bad enough.
Yeah, you know me for many years, Larry. I don't use the word communist a lot to discuss our current political environment.
Right.
But this is communism.
Yeah.
That's the communist totalitarian view of the world. Everything is about their radical, a revolutionary agenda, and those that oppose it need to be re-educated. And denying their reality, which is that the entire country is systematically oppressive, is evidence of your guilt. And so, that's a policy divide that really it transcends the liberal versus conservative. That's radical extremists. They shouldn't have any business accessing and teaching our children in our schools. But this is what's being promoted through all levels of society now, and it's something we have to confront.
So is there any response from Montgomery County council members or from the school board? Sadly, the elected officials that appear to represent Montgomery County, they're on board with this. I can't imagine the parents of Montgomery County want their money spent this way or want their kids facing these things. And secondarily, how is this possible? This is clearly overtly political, partisan, and one-sided. Don't we have statutes in the state of Maryland keeping public schools from taking sides on issues like this?
It's not about politics in my view. This is not a moral and philosophical issue. Obviously we're moral and intellectual objections to this radicalism. But when you engage in racist teaching, it's illegal.
Yeah.
It's illegal under state law, it's illegal under federal law, it's illegal under the Constitution. Every student deserves equal protection of the laws. And when some students are singled out, or entire categories of humanity are singled out according to their race by public school officials in the classroom, that's a legal issue that, that transcends politics. Where's the rule of law here? And we see it in Montgomery County. You see it with the radical mayor in Chicago that has deemed the press corps that covers her too white and too male, and therefore will deny access to government officials based on race and sex. The left, and this is something we should also understand, the radical left does not oppose sexism. It does not oppose racism.
Right.
They just want to direct it at their perceived political and opposed demographic groups.
Right. But but the idea that "Make America Great Again" is a example of covert white supremacy. That's celebrating Columbus Day. I mean, last I checked, that's still a federal holiday. To actually celebrate a federal holiday is in some way a example of racism. It's frankly evil because it's telling a child that their own parents are racist if they happen to celebrate Columbus Day or actually vote for Donald Trump. That's not the public schools' role here, and yet they've taken on that role. What is there any kind of action that parents can take to push this issue and actually make them accountable?
Well, Larry, I've listened to your show enough to know that you know what the action that needs to be taken, which is to communicate with your school board officials, make them accountable, hold them accountable, use the powers that you have as voters, my fellow listeners and Americans. In my view, there needs to be a law and order approach here. There should be complaints filed with relevant authorities to investigate the violations of civil rights and the Constitution that are taking place here. And, the challenge both in Maryland at the federal level is that the folks running those agencies support this type of, as I call it, claptrap.
Yeah.
And that's being taught our children. But our children are being abused here. And whether you have kids in Montgomery County or not, it's your tax dollars at work, both at the state, local, and frankly the federal level, because we see in Biden administration wants to promote this with grants and has fully embraced critical race theory. Every time you hear President Biden talk about equity, that's critical race theory. That's a radical extremist view that demands the Communist Manifesto be promoted, which is equal outcomes for everyone, which isn't what America is about.
Our guest is Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, and I'd love to, and hopefully you can speak to this. I know it's something that Judicial Watch has taken up, but I know that you guys take up a lot of things. But I've just seen this announcement that you have filed. Judicial Watch has filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of a man named David Flynn. He's the father of two students in a public school district up in Massachusetts. And because he's been removed from his position as a head football coach because he raised concerns over his own daughter's history class curriculum and the fact that it was biased. It had a biased coursework for politics, race, for gender, and all of this stuff. And he raised concerns over it, and they fired him as the head football coach. This is, again, our schools are the front lines right now in these things, Tom.
That's right, and that was a middle school up in Dedham, Massachusetts that was teaching Black Lives Matter and critical race theory propaganda. He objected that his daughters, I think it was ancient history and civilization. Why were they secretly interspersing this radical curriculum in there? And he went and complained, and he didn't get the results, so he took his kids out of the school. A few months later, he was fired in retaliation, so that's why we have the federal lawsuit on his behalf. So these are dangerous times. Not only is the communism rising, but they will target and punish you if you oppose them in ways that are quite dramatic.
Tom, one other story that I know you guys are tracking there, and that has to do with, and maybe you can shed some light on it because I've only seen a couple of headlines go by. The Biden administration is actually transporting plane loads of illegal immigrant minors from the border into cities, and they're doing this in the dark of night. They're doing this obviously to escape scrutiny. It's not like they let the media down at the border in these facilities anyway, and now they're actually transporting these illegal immigrant minors in the middle of the night on planes all across the nation. What policy is this, and why are they doing it in the middle of the night?
Well, you know why they're doing it in the middle of the night, so people can't figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
This Biden border crisis, we should recognize that when you have no secure border, every town is a border town. And in Tennessee, they blew the whistle because they were bringing in plane loads of people at 1:30 at night. Young, essentially, they are affecting the final leg of child and human trafficking.
Right.
Right.
Let's be clear here. These are human smugglers, these coyotes who are moving them from Guadalajara, Honduras, what have you. and they get them to the border. And now the Biden administration is aiding and abetting the whole process and smuggling these kids up into Chattanooga or wherever they take them.
That's right. And you've got all hands on deck. You got the Defense Department, HHS is involved, and of course you have DHS involved as well because of their border security provisions. So the buses are leaving from the border area, and they're flying folks all through from the border area all throughout the United States. So the illegal immigrants are trafficked here, and this is human trafficking. This is child trafficking, and it's handed off to the government, who happily, rather than arresting those involved on both ends, those who are trafficking and those who have the children trafficked, allegedly their parents or adult supervise, they're responsible adults, often who are here illegally as well.
Yes.
They actually just help them get the kids to where they need to be, and Lord knows what happens after that. And first of all, and they're not all kids. They're people, oftentimes adults, who say they're kids.
Yeah, yeah. And Tom, is there? I mean, I assume there's supposed to be some level of transparency in how our government operates, but are they claiming, or are they attempting to claim, that because these are minors, that we must respect their privacy? If people want to do a FOIA request, get the information about the names of the people, are they going to be able to shield this? Because this should be public information.
Well, that's a good point. They will use all excuses to avoid immediate press disclosure. But when we pursue this and I suspect we probably will be pursuing FOIA litigation as it relates to this and other, and to the Biden border crisis generally, they got to go to court and defend that. So what they're doing is they're throwing up a lot of chaff to prevent people from gaining access to information about what's going on in these facilities and at the border generally. But I'm hoping the rule of law prevails and we get some more transparency. But in the meantime, our border's been destroyed, practically speaking. And I tell you, we've impeached presidents for a lot less. Well, in the case of Trump, for nothing.
For a whole lot less. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Tom Fitton, we got to leave it there. It has been so important to have you as a regular guest here on this afternoon program that we began 4.5 years ago. And I know that you'll be a regular with Vince Colonnese when he takes up on Monday, and I'll talk to you in the mornings from this point forward.
Well, good luck in your going back to the morning, and I'll be looking forward to working with both of you in the future.
Thanks, Tom. That is Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch. They really are government oversight, not the House committee. They are government oversight at Judicial Watch. So go help them out and support them at judicialwatch.org, judicialwatch.org.